People read so many different things into art that it's pretty clear to me it's an interpretation. Theory maybe is the art side of physics, because you're being creative, you're trying to think outside of the box. Could this happen? Could that happen? When you write an equation down, we would all agree in the room, it's beautiful or it's not beautiful, because we actually believe nature does things in a beautiful way. So if it's not beautiful, then it couldn't have been nature that created this, and therefore it's not correct. And so it is a curious word to be using when you're talking about an equation, but it is completely present in every scientist, and it's understood. It's almost innate.
Any creative person faces this really deep and difficult challenge of trying to bring out what they feel intuitively is something that they've understood, and what they feel they've actually done work on and researched and thought about, sometimes for years, if not decades. And so the distinctions that between the arts and the sciences strike me as artificial. Sometimes it's completely nonsensical. We're all seeking similar things, which is to try and understand the world around us in a better way, to try and improve the world we live in. And most importantly, we're trying to figure out phenomena and figure out ways in which we can express what we learn.
This evening came together because a few months ago, I got a chance to interview Nigel Lockyer. And I said, I've got big ideas. I've got grandiose ideas on what I'm going to do. I'm graduating with my master's, and I want to lead discussions with interesting people. And we made this happen. Tonight is about art, science, and curiosity of two remarkable men, and about their lives and their perspectives.
Physics is a very mathematical subject, and so a physicist will feel comfortable looking at an equation and understand what it means, but as soon as he turns to his friend or someone who's not a physicist, you would have to explain to them what that means. So I'll use the example of the Higgs boson discovery, which was last year. It was in all the newspapers, and I'm sure if you read every newspaper article very carefully, you would see there wasn't quite an agreement on what it was you had discovered. It was something obviously important in science. Mathematically, it was well defined. There was no question what it was mathematically. But how do you explain to your neighbor what had been discovered by, I'm going to estimate there's 5,000-6,000 people involved in that discovery, all focused on trying to do the same thing.
I think one of the things that fascinates me about science is the extraordinary presumption that knowledge can actually be contained by language. The challenge is in a universe that we're accustomed to seeing through material eyes, is how we actually talk about a universe that is really not as material as it feels. I mean, the best example of that is that I love the way scientists show us the nano world, which they can only see in black and white, but make it look colorful. When you talk about visualization, you're talking about creativity, you're talking about picturing, you're talking about images, you're talking about ways of explaining not only to the public, but to yourself what you can't see. So it's language and image. That's what we do. So the question of this dialogue is really essential. I think pure science, not applied science, faces the same challenges that we do in the world of the arts. The notion of exploration, the notion that exploration is actually productive without necessarily having an end, that it doesn't have to have a goal that is clearly defined but can actually be flowing and moving and changing. All that, I think, scientists with that same sense of curiosity actually share that deeply, which is why, in a sense, almost to begin with, in the first contacts that we had with TRIUMF, that was one of the first things we actually talked about.
Why are we interested in art at TRIUMF?
Yeah.
And the answer is art is a creative enterprise, and physicists look at the world and they think they understand what they're looking at, and the fact that an artist comes along and puts a picture up on the wall and we don't understand what it is, then you've really caught the physicists off guard, and they say, what the heck is that, and why did they draw it, and how was the technique, what was the technique, and what were the instruments that were used to make it? Because you automatically want to decompose it down into it's the reductionist view of the world. You think you can understand it. So having that, putting a piece of art in a scientific environment stimulates the scientist, but the response of the artists, I think, is that they're curious at how the scientists see it, and we've gone through some exercises where we've gone both ways. But it all comes back to you're trying to get to something, you don't know how to do it, you need to be creative to do it, and it all starts with your brain somehow, or a collection of brains, and you do it together, and so that's what makes it exciting.